Tage Thompson to the Olympics, plus some updates on Sabres practice coming up on the Locked On Sabres podcast.
Your Locked On Sabres, your daily podcast on the Buffalo Sabres. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, everybody, and welcome into this Friday edition of the Locked On Sabres podcast. Thanks for making us your first listen every day. We are the #1 sports podcast network. You can watch our show wherever you listen to your podcast. You can get the show on YouTube as well. Be sure to like and subscribe there if you want ad-free versions of this show. That's also available to you. You also get access to our Locked On Sabres Discord. Other perks, if you're a part of our Everydayer Club, if you're not already, go to lockedonsabres.supercast.com, and that is the place to sign up. Sneaky Joe DiBiase on today's show. The Sabres and the Blue Jackets coming your way on Saturday afternoon. On our next show, we will go into a full preview of that game, what Columbus offers as a challenge, as the Sabres will go for the franchise record 11 wins in a row. And we also have some updates on practice that are, attributed to that game. We will get to that a little bit later on today's show, so stay tuned for that. But a lot to get to today on the Olympics. Very excited to have this show. I'm very into Olympic hockey. I always have been, and it's been a decade plus, 12 years since we have had NHL players at the Olympics. Now, I'm going to say they're going because we have these rosters being unveiled and everybody's hyping it up, but the arena still isn't built. So, fingers crossed that everything goes okay there and those Italians over there are able to finish it off because that building is not ready to go and the tournament starts in a month, which is a little terrifying, but hopefully they are working round the clock. I'm sure they are. So, lot to get to on roster decision-making. I have some opinions on some non-Sabre things on Team USA and Canada and, the Finnish and Swedish teams, which feature a Sabre on each. So that's coming up a little bit on today's show as well. But the lead story of the day is Team USA announcing their roster, and Tage Thompson is on it, which is a huge congratulations to Tage, who talked about how important it was to him to make this team, his going to the World Championships last year and scoring the golden goal. I think between Tage and Clayton Keller of the Utah Mammoth, who were two players not on the Four Nations team last year, both of those players went to the World Championships. Tage scored the golden goal. Keller was the captain of the team. And USA Hockey, I think, really rewarded them for doing that. They want better players going to the Worlds, and I think they gave a little bit of an incentive to players saying, hey, if you go to this tournament and you play well, especially, then we're going to give you the inside track to make the Olympic team. We want players participating in the national team, not just for the Olympics, but in all competitions. And, the Worlds are the really only tournament that you would do that in. So Tage went, Keller went, and they got rewarded. Now, I'm sure if Thompson had been having a horrible season or had been injured, they wouldn't have put him on the team. And I think the same goes with Keller. And honestly, on Tage, he is coming off maybe his best game of the season. He was unbelievable against Dallas all three periods, but he especially took over in the third. In large part, though, I've not been the biggest fan of Tage's season. He's been fine. He's been good. But he's been the Sabres' leading scorer. He's got 20 goals on the year already, so he's on a 40-goal pace. And I think this commentary should not be taken as a criticism of Thompson, but even as much a compliment of how good a player he is, that his bar is so high to clear because we know how talented he is. I mean, he gets Mario Lemieux comparisons when he is hitting on all cylinders. This year, he's been pretty inconsistent, I've thought. He's been very streaky. He's gone on these torrid streaks where he's scoring 6 goals in 6 games, and he'll put a game in like he did against Dallas where he can take it over. But some disappearing acts. I thought St. Louis was one of those games. There was a game a little bit earlier in the season against, I believe, there actually might have been the first St. Louis game, but there were a couple of those earlier in the year that I did not like Thompson. I have not liked him as much in his own end. I thought before this season, Thompson had really come a long way as a two-way player last year, especially. This year, I think that's regressed a little bit. But again, this is an elite forward. So when he's really, really good, which I think is what I'd want to label his season as so far, it's a really good season. He's not quite playing, I think, up to his, full standard. Maybe it's 80% of the standard. So I don't want to go too far in on that. All to say, what I'm trying to get to here is, I think if he had not gone to the Worlds, Team USA might have left him home. It's not like he's been, his best self. And even that little tiny drop off that maybe you've had could have given them an excuse to not put him on the team. But he went to the Worlds. He did his job. And I think maybe not this year, in previous seasons especially, though, really proved to be a good player in his own end, along with the offensive talent that we know that he is. So deserved. It's over multiple years. Multiple years deserved. This player has been the second leading goal scorer for American hockey players in the NHL, only behind Auston Matthews. It would have been incomprehensible for this guy to not make the team. Now, they made another decision that I think kind of goes with, hey, if you had left Tage home, and they kind of did a similar decision with Jason Robertson, but really like Tage making the team. And I see him as a third line winger for this team. It'll be interesting to see where they envision him. He was not on the Four Nations roster, so can't really predict it from that. He's not going to be a fourth liner. I don't think he's going to play center. I think wing is in line for him, given that Jack Eichel and Auston Matthews and Jack Hughes are all probably going to play down the middle. At least that's where I would have them. The thing about Hughes, though, is they had him on the wing at the Four Nations. Didn't look good, though. He did not play great playing on the wing. So I think you put him at center. If they want to continue trying to put Hughes on the wing, or maybe they try to put Matthews on the wing because he hasn't had the best season. He's been much worse than Tage this year. Maybe there's a center spot that opens up on the third line, but there are other guys that I think that could fill that other than Tage. I mean, Dylan Larkin very easily could be that player. They could put JT Miller up there. I would advise against that, but they probably will keep Tage on the wing. And the other question about Tage's role is power play. He's at least on power play 2. I don't think he's on power play 1, but I could be wrong. The problem for Tage lies just the amount of incredible power play players that are right shots that you would expect to play over on that side. I mean, no offense to Tage, but I'm putting Jack Eichel on that spot before I'm going to Tage. So maybe Tage is the right shot left flank on the second unit, but like I can't get to him being on the number 1 unit just because of Eichel's presence. And then Matthews is going to play on the other side. So I don't think you're going him on his offhand. Second power play unit, third line. That's what I could see for him. Maybe if he's playing well, they bump him up on one of the top lines. Number 1 line, Eichel at center with Tage on the right wing. A little reunion there. That's certainly possible. Throw a Kachuk on the left side. I think you got a lot of options for Tage, and I expect him to play a good role on this team. And if they win gold, it'd be awesome. I think that they are more than capable of winning gold. I think even though they made one incredibly terrible decision, leaving Jason Robertson home, Dallas Stars forward who's leading the NHL in goals since November 15th, leaving him home, it's not really that surprising, because USA Hockey, as I've stated before, has this 1980 curse. They continue to believe that, it's more about players that are going to work hard and are going to defend well and be gritty, and it's all about that. That they have this feeling that they can't possibly be the most skilled team on the ice, so they have to build their team in the light of the 1980 roster, which wasn't the most talented team, but they pulled the upset. They build a team like they think they're always the underdog. And that was the decision-making at the bottom of the roster. This team has no reason to believe they're not as skilled as Canada. They are. They don't have the top talent like McDavid, McKinnon, because those two are on their own tier. There's nobody else in the world on their tier. So they don't have that. But everything else they have better depth up front, I think, than Canada. They have a better blue line, and they certainly, by leaps and bounds, have a better goaltending spot. So, you don't have to act like you're the biggest underdog. But yet, they're putting players on the roster, Vinny Trocheck, Brock Nelson, JT Miller. They're putting players on the roster that are going to get run over in their own end. I like Travis Yosa's tweet today that, like, oh yeah, Brock Nelson, the right guy. He's really gonna be the right kind of defensive player that he is. He's gasping for air after chasing Canada around for an entire shift. This is a hockey problem as much as it is a Team USA hockey problem, that hockey really values how guys play when they're trapped in their own end, blocking shots and fighting in the corners. And they value that more than they value just not being trapped in your own end. That's what I would have done. I would have said, screw it. All-star team. All these GMs want to say, oh, you can't have an all-star team. You can't have an all-star team. No one's ever really done it other than Canada because that's their only option. They have so many all-star level players that they're the closest thing to an all-star team. And they win all the time. So, all right. You want to throw out JT Miller, Vinny Trocheck, who's having a bad year, by the way, especially defensively, and Brock Nelson? Not bad hockey players, but when you're going up against the likes of some of the guys the Canadians are going to throw out there, they're going to be in their own end. And you know what? They might get credit for it. Look how gritty that shift was as they were pinned back there for 2 minutes and they couldn't get the puck out, but they didn't get scored on. Versus, well, if I had Jason Robertson available or Cole Caulfield, players like that, well, okay, maybe they're not as good in their own end as those guys, but what if they're not spending 2 minutes in their own end? What if it's 10 seconds and they get it out and now they're controlling possession? What if that line is more skilled than the Canadian third and fourth line? So they control possession. Oh, they're not as good as they're in their own end. What does it matter if they're not in their own end? That's a overall generic philosophy thing that I think hockey doesn't quite get as much as it should. And I think Robertson's an example of that. Caulfield to a lesser extent, DeBrincat to a lesser extent. Robertson's the one. That is an inexcusable decision. But even without him, I think the USA is right there with Canada. I think the blue line right now, they did leave Adam Fox home, which was a decision in itself, but he's coming back from injury, so a little bit more defendable there. Quinn Hughes and Charlie McAvoy, Jake Sanderson, the way he's played, Jacob Slavin, Zach Werenski. And then you throw Seth Jones and Noah Hannafin, Brock Faber at the back end. That blue line is better than Canada's. And I don't even have to go into the goaltending. It's 10 times better than Canada's. And the forward group is just close enough that I think Team USA will win gold in Milan. Now, when we come back, the other Sabres that made the Olympic team, one in Sweden, one in Finland, Dahlin and Luukkonen, their roles. I got a thought on Dahlin because I did not like how he was used at the Four Nations, and Luukkonen, who I just want to throw out there. I'm not the biggest Luukkonen guy by far. I think he might have a shot to start for Finland. Get to that when we come back on Locked On Sabres. Today's episode of the Locked On Sabres podcast is presented by FanDuel Sportsbook, who, by the way, Olympic hockey odds, they're up. You can go check them out. And if you are looking at the U.S., I mean, you're not really getting underdog odds. They are one of the favorites. Absolutely. Right there with Canada. Not just hockey right now. Fridays are always feeling different during basketball season, and FanDuel is making them even better. Every Friday night, before the games tip off, FanDuel gives fans a new way to kick off the weekend with NBA Happy Hour. NBA Happy Hour is your official pregame, a limited time window where special offers drop right inside the FanDuel app before the action starts. Fridays from 6 to 7:30 Eastern have become appointment viewing with NBA Happy Hour. Opening the FanDuel app during Happy Hour always brings something new, boosts, bonuses, and surprises. It's easy to check the weekly special before tip-off and make a move before the window closes. Timing's perfect, right before the games, right before the weekend starts. Adds that little extra energy to some Friday night hoops without overthinking it. So, before tip-off, check the FanDuel app, see what's dropping during NBA Happy Hour every Friday, 6 to 7:30 p.m. Eastern. Little basketball, little action, and a whole lot of Friday energy. That's NBA Happy Hour only on FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NBA. Sneaky Joe DiBiase back here on the Locked On Sabres podcast. We'll have a preview edition for Sabres and Blue Jackets on our next show. Got a little update from practice a little bit later on today. There were a couple other Sabres that made their Olympic rosters. Get to that in one moment. Some of the omissions that I saw some people tweeting about and that I was thinking about mildly for Olympic rosters. I wondered if there was a chance over the last month or so that Alex Tuch could make Team USA. And listen, I never thought Alex Tuch was going to make Team USA. And that was evident last week. Michael Russo from The Athletic, who's very as plugged in on the U.S. roster decision-making than anybody. He covers the Wild. That's Bill Guerin. He's the GM. He talked about guys that were on the bubble with Elliot Friedman on 32 Thoughts last week. He never mentioned Alex Tuch. So I didn't think Alex Tuch was going to make it. However, if I were Team USA GM, I think Alex Tuch's a better option for them than Vinny Trocheck. And I think he's right on par with Brock Nelson and JT Miller. Now, I wouldn't have had any of those three on the team, but Tuch, you want penalty killing, Tuch, right? You want speed and a guy that could play on your fourth line on a team like that, or on your top six, like Tuch would have been the guy. I wouldn't have had him on my team either, but I would have had him over some of those guys that made it at the bottom. Mattias Samuelsson was another guy that I thought about. Listen, I think Samuelsson has been one of the best defensemen in the league this year. I don't think that's overstating it. He's been incredible. And you want to tell me that he's a better option than Noah Hannafin or Seth Jones in a vacuum? I'd listen to that right now. The problem is lefty-righty, and Seth Jones is a right-shot defenseman, and Samuelsson is not. So I never thought Samuelsson would make the team. I thought he deserved a mention here, though, because he has been that good this season, but never thought he would make it. And Josh Doan, same thing. Like, I got a question about him. No chance. Never thought Josh Doan would make it either. So those are some of the omissions. Yuri Kulik, as far as I have seen, I've not seen Czechia's roster. I don't believe it's been released yet. No, it hasn't. So we're still waiting on that. Yuri Kulik would be the guy to watch for. But due to his blood clot issue, I would just be really, really surprised if we were going to see him on that team. Maybe they give him a spot if they get a good update from the Sabres. You know what? Like, maybe that's a sign. Keep an eye on that. If I'm Czechia, I'm calling the Sabres. And if the Sabres say, yeah, by February he should be good, then I'm putting him on the roster. And maybe that'll give us our first sign of how close he is to returning. If he's not on the team, then maybe it's still long-term. And if he is on the team, then you would have to think they're thinking about him being a part of the roster. If he was healthy, he would have definitely been on it. And that's pretty much it. Nobody else that I can think of that would have been in play at all. No Owen Power for Canada. No... Who else? Well, the two guys that made it. Let's get to them. Get to Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen and Rasmus Dahlin. And I'll start with Dahlin. He was obvious. Everybody knew he was going to make the roster. The problem I had with Sweden at the Four Nations last year, their coaching staff acted like they had no idea how good Rasmus Dahlin was. They were playing him in a bottom three role on their defense core. Victor Hedman was playing over him a lot. That's not too surprising. He's a horse. He's a long-time guy for that team. Erik Karlsson was playing over him. Okay, offensive side of the game, I can listen to that in certain situations, number one power play. Mattias Ekholm was playing over him. In situations like 3-on-3 overtime, where are exactly when you want Dahlin. And he was, again, relegated to a role that wasn't featured on the power play, wasn't really playing on the penalty kill, wasn't playing in 3-on-3 overtime. Like, all of these specialty situations where he thrives, wasn't involved in any of them. Total mistake. You want to tell me Karlsson on the power play should play over him? Fine. You want to tell me Hedman should play over him in the most critical situations? Fine. But don't give me anybody else. Nobody else on that team should be playing over him in any spot. Gustav Forsling, was also playing over him. So really, he was more like the fifth guy. Well, this go round, Ekholm is not there. They did not take Mattias Ekholm, Team Sweden. Their defensemen are Erik Karlsson, Victor Hedman, Gustav Forsling, Rasmus Dahlin, Oliver Ekman-Larsson, Jonas Brodin, Philip Broberg, and Rasmus Andersson. So we'll see. I think it would be incredible if Dahlin is not played as one of their top two defensemen. I would put him out there with Victor Hedman. I would put him on the top pair. That's your number one pair. They play 20-plus minutes a night, and you let it roll. And you put him on the number two power play unit. If you want Karlsson on your number one power play unit, you play Dahlin on the penalty kill. Like, I would use him in a big role. And I thought it was incredible that Sweden did not do that last year at the Four Nations, and they got what they deserved. They did not make the medal game. Luukkonen, the other one. You know what? Like, I'm not a big UPL guy, and I think he's a very difficult goalie to trust on a night-to-night basis. In a short-term tournament, though, with the options that Finland has, I'm interested what role that he will have. Now, if you didn't know what kind of season they were all having and you looked at who's on the team, you would go, oh, wait a minute, Juuse Saros. Easily. That's their goaltender. Because Juuse Saros, for 10 years, largely, has been a very good goaltender. He finished in the top 6 in Vezina voting 4 consecutive years from 2021 to 2024. Finished 3rd, 6th, 3rd, 4th, 5th. Save percentage has been great for a long time. Goal save above expected have been great for a long time, but not the last 2 years. Not last year, not this year. Sub 900 save percentage goalie each of the last 2 years. This year, he leads the NHL in goals allowed. That could be the team that he's on. And I kind of think that it is. I think a lot of that is probably impacted by Nashville is really, really bad. And it's a little tougher right now to be their goalie than it was a few years ago. So if I were Finland, I would probably still start Saros in the first game and see if he can be my guy throughout the entire tournament, because of all their 3 goalies, Kevin Lankinen is the other one. Of the 3 goalies, Lankinen of the Canucks, Saros by far has the best career, has the best track record, is the most trustworthy, but hasn't been great for 2 years. What if Luukkonen is really good over the next month, where Lyon maybe is out of the lineup because of injury and the Sabres stay hot and they're playing really well in front of him and that helps him put up good numbers? Like, I think there is a scenario. I think there really is a scenario where Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen is the Finnish goalie in their first game. And if he plays well there, maybe throughout the entire tournament. I think Luukkonen has a real shot at it. And I think right now, he would be the guy they would turn to if it wasn't Saros. I don't think Kevin Lankinen would be that guy. Lankinen, actually, you could argue, I don't think I would argue it, has had a better career in the last 4 years than Luukkonen has. But this year, he's also been very poor. So right now, like, Luukkonen's been up and down this year, but he's been better than the other 2. So I think there's a real shot that he's your Finnish goalie to start the tournament. Can't wait. We're a little over a month away. I think USA is going to win gold over Canada, and we'll see if Tage is a big part of that. When we come back, the Sabres were on the ice for practice this morning, and we got one little interesting update that could be a bad sign for tomorrow against Columbus. So that when we come back on Locked On Sabres. Sneaky Joe DiBiase back here on the Locked On Sabres podcast. By the way, Highmark Stadium or Rich Stadium, the Ralph, closing out on Sunday. Maybe you got some hockey memories of being at Highmark Stadium or then Ralph Wilson Stadium, the Winter Classic in 2009 or 2008. I was not at that Winter Classic. I was at the watch party at the arena, so I did not go to the Winter Classic, but everybody that was there talks about it being one of the coolest moments and experiences ever sports-wise in this city, and especially at that stadium. I did get the chance to see an outdoor hockey game there. I made sure, because I hadn't been at the Winter Classic, that I was at USA Canada World Juniors in 2018. And that was the game where the U.S. decided to wear long-sleeve Bills jerseys, which is still one of the most questionable decisions I've ever seen. But all right, they wore those. There were tons of Canadian fans. I was in the stands, and I think it was 70-30 Canada fans to U.S. fans. So they certainly had the home ice advantage. The snow was coming down. It was nighttime, and it was windy. We were in the upper deck. It was like top 3 coldest I've ever been in my entire life. But it was awesome. It was an awesome game. The snow globe environment was really cool because the weather was nice for that, at least. The aesthetic of it. And the game was good. U.S. came back. They won it. Casey Middlestat was a huge part of it. Big comeback in the third period. So maybe got a couple hockey memories. Maybe you're at both of those games. To the Sabres. Not a great practice update today. Other than the injury that we're about to tell you about, Michael Kesselring, everything else is the same. Lines are the same. They're still continuing to not put Jason Zucker in. He is skating as an extra with Tyson Kozak. Krebs is still in the top line with Thompson and Doan. Greenway is still down there with Dunn and Malenstein. Like, I mentioned the other day that Seth Appert with me said you can't be afraid of change when you're winning, but they're treating it as though we're just going to keep this lineup until it stops winning. So For now, Zucker stays out of the lineup. Now, the one change that we might get is there was no Michael Kesselring at practice today, which is not great because I've really liked him the last couple of games. I think he's skating a lot better. He looks healthier to me. He's getting involved in the rush. He's been pretty solid in his own end. Him and Power are really starting to hit their stride. And Lindy said Kesselring, who was not on the ice today, was held off due to a lower body injury. Quote, we kept him off today. We'll just evaluate him, see where he's at for tomorrow, how he feels. So leaving that really up in the air for tomorrow as to whether we'll see Kesselring on the ice or not. I do think it would be a big loss to not have him, though, if he's going to keep playing like he has the last couple of nights. So that is what we got from practice. And the one other thing that is probably expected is that Luukkonen is going to play tomorrow. He was in the starter's goal. So I think you will see Colton Ellis at some point make the lineup. But that has not happened yet. No Colton Ellis yet. And really, if you're looking at the schedule and trying to figure out when they might mix him in, and if it's even possible that by the time it would be his turn to start, that Lyon would be back, the Buffalo Sabres do not play a back-to-back until the 05-06 night, which sucks, by the way, because that's going to be an awesome night in the arena, and they got to play back-to-back. Wednesday against Philadelphia, the 14th, and then Thursday, the 15th, they host the Canadiens. So at least they're at home, but that's the next time. Like, if Luukkonen got hot here, you wouldn't have to play anybody else for 7 games. 7 games out, you could push the next start for another guy if Luukkonen, keeps playing well here. And let's fingers crossed hope that he does. Sabres and Blue Jackets tomorrow. We'll talk more about the game on our next show, so stay tuned for that. If you want to talk in our Locked On Sabres Discord about USA hockey decision-making and the Kesselring news from today, I know it's only a little bit. You can do that. Head over to lockedonsabres.supercast.com. You get ad-free versions of the show as well. Talk to you tomorrow or later tonight, really, on the Locked On Sabres podcast. We'll talk Sabres and Blue Jackets, and then hopefully they set the franchise record 11 in a row. Talk to you then here on the Locked On Sabres podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network.